This is a journey to discover the essence of one of the world's most ancient civilizations. Discovering China.
Hi, I'm Molina Wang, and welcome to Discovering China, the show where we sift through the sands of Chinese civilization, presenting you with the most precious pieces of traditional Chinese culture. Today we'll be taking a look at two of China's most famous styles of traditional Kung Fu. We'll be finding out about Lu Yu, China's sage of tea. And in the last in our series on Chinese gardens, Margaret Tri delves into the plant life used in a traditional Chinese garden. If you're a fan of Chinese Kung Fu movies, you may have heard the names of the two most famous schools of traditional Chinese martial arts, Wudang and Shaolin. Let's now find out more about these two Chinese fighting styles.
Shaolin and Wudang are the two most famous styles of Chinese Kung Fu. Shaolin Kung Fu is said to originate from the Indian Buddhist monk Bodhidharma, who meditated for 9 years in a cave near the Shaolin Temple. After he came out of his meditative state, Bodhidharma taught the Shaolin monks a set of exercises to strengthen their bodies. These exercises later evolved into Shaolin Kung Fu. While Shaolin is a Buddhist external martial arts tradition, at high-level practice it does channel the body's natural internal energy, or qi, to deliver or absorb explosive blows. Wudang is considered a soft or internal martial arts style. It's part of the ancient Taoist martial arts system and is named after the famous Wudang Mountains. Wudang emphasizes channeling the body's qi from the start. Its origins can be traced to China's legendary figures, such as Taoist priest Zheng Shanfeng, the creator of Tai Chi. Whether internal or external, the two martial arts systems share one trait: the training is very demanding.
I remember the first time we practiced handstands. There were 30 people in each class. After 2 minutes, we all cried. It was really hard work. My shoulders felt as if they were going to fall out. I couldn't feel anything, as if they no longer belonged to me. It was the hardest when we first began training.
Shaolin and Wudang students demonstrate their prowess in front of the world's tallest seated outdoor bronze Buddha on Lantau Island in Hong Kong. Hong Kong residents are impressed.
Yeah, I think I would like to go for a few karate lessons or maybe Shaolin. Yeah, I like it. It builds your bodies and all that kind of stuff. Even mentally, it's pretty good.
Despite the hype in modern society surrounding these practices, both share ancient spiritual roots. They come from China's traditional culture of self-cultivation. It's an Eastern concept of mind, body, mystical or spiritual improvement. The Chinese term for cultivation is xiu-lian. Xiu means to restore or return, and lian means to improve or refine. These classical Chinese martial arts practices stress the importance of inner peace, integrity and virtue in order to develop high-level proficiency.
Don't try that at home. Most Chinese people love to drink tea, and the beverage has a long history in China. Now let's find out more about the man who has come to be known as China's sage of tea.
Lu Yu was a tea master during the peak of the Tang Dynasty. To use modern terms, one could say it was his career. Lu was one of a specialized class of tea experts who picked, produced, and steeped tea for their clients. These clients would often be the well-to-do families of China's Tang Dynasty, some of which would have their own live-in tea master on their staff. Yet Lu was more than the average tea master. He has come to be known as the sage of tea. Lu's way of tea is deeply rooted in the classical Chinese culture of self-cultivation. Perceived by those during his time to have supernormal abilities, Lu was regarded as the deity of tea, or tea god. Lu's story, like the story of popularization of tea in the Tang Dynasty, started in a Buddhist monastery. Lu was raised by a Buddhist monk. From a young age, Lu carried out the duty of preparing tea for his master, who excelled in the culture of tea. Rather than becoming a monk himself, Lu became a Confucian literary scholar with a passion for tea. Accounts in Tang Dynasty texts indicated that Lu was working professionally as a tea master. One record in the Feng Shi Wenjian Ji, a record of the Feng clan in the Tang Dynasty, described a government official named Li Jiqing employing Lu to make tea for him. The record described Lu having a reputation as a tea expert. Lu's reputation on the art of tea grew after he wrote the Cha Jing, or Classic of Tea. The Cha Jing is the world's first ever tea manual. The book is more than just a manual. It contains a glimpse into Lu's world, a world steeped in Buddhist, Taoist and Confucian philosophy. Lu's Buddhist roots shine through in the book. Lu's life consisted of long periods of time alone in the mountains, traditionally the dwelling places of Buddhists and Taoist immortals. During this time alone, Lu would climb to inaccessible places to find rare and wild teas and the finest water sources. Lu's book was an instant hit during the Tang Dynasty, and a tea craze swept across China. Many collected versions of his 24-part tea set outlined in the Classic of Tea. The rich collected luxurious versions, made of fine china or even silver. Yet Lu was not extravagant himself. He proclaimed that tea does not lend itself to extravagance. He valued savouring the flavour and recommended drinking only 3 cups of tea in one sitting. This way of moderation carries the flavour of Confucius's golden mean, or taking the middle way. It is a key concept of self-cultivation in Chinese history. Records of Lu's supernormal abilities were recorded in the text of the Tang Dynasty. One text describes the reaction of a military officer who was amazed at Lu's ability to tell where water came from just by its taste. Other references in Tang historical texts state that Lu was regarded as a god during his lifetime or shortly after his death. One text mentioned that Tang people were hanging portraits of Lu on the walls of their tea storerooms and worshipping him as a god. This is how Lu, the man who wrote the world's first ever tea manual and spread tea culture across China, came to be revered. Later, at the end of the Song dynasty, with the improvements in tea production methods for loose leaf tea, it became easier for ordinary people to brew tea themselves, and the age of the tea master ended. But Lu Yu would forever be immortalized as the sage of tea, and remains the most important historical figure in traditional Chinese tea culture.
Now, in the last of our series on Chinese gardens, Margaret Try finds out what plant life goes into a traditional Chinese garden.
The timeless beauty of a traditional Ming-style Chinese scholar's garden is ever-changing. Rich in symbolism and design. Every tree, shrub and flower serves to create a mystical paradise for the Chinese scholar. The garden reflects the traditional Chinese view of the universe, the yin-yang concept of contrast, and the 5 elements theory, which includes water, earth, metal, fire, and wood. Wood in a form of trees is a key element in classical Chinese gardens. This is illustrated in the choice of plant life, which blends with the building designs.
There are certainly many elements of nature in the architecture of the Chinese scholar's garden, as well as in the choice of plantings in the garden, which reflect some of the traditional Chinese values.
Different plants reflect different aspects of these values.
Some very important aspects of Chinese culture would be longevity, which is symbolized by the pine, strength and flexibility, which is symbolized by the bamboo, and loyalty, which is symbolized by the flowering plum.
Lord talks about the 3 friends of winter in a traditional Chinese scholar's garden.
This is a black bamboo. This is one of the 3 friends of winter, and it symbolizes strength and flexibility. In the winter, the bamboo can bend with the snow, and it can actually go all the way down to the ground, but when the snow melts, it comes back up. So it's very flexible, but it's very strong.
The bamboo epitomizes the noble qualities of the Chinese scholar, upright, humble, and supple, yet strong to endure the cold winter.
This is a lacebark pine, or Pinus bungiana. It's one of the three friends of winter, and it symbolizes longevity and solidarity. One of the most beautiful things on this pine tree is this exfoliating bark. As it peels off, it creates this mottled pattern on here.
A slow-growing evergreen, the lacebark pine is native to northeastern and central China.
This is a flowering plum, or sometimes in this country we call it a flowering apricot, and it symbolizes loyalty in Chinese culture. So along with the bamboo, the pine, this plum is one of the three friends of winter, and this is, it flowers late winter, so that's part of the reason it's one of the three friends of winter.
Trees, shrubs and flowers are chosen for their shape and symbolic meanings. Others, like this Japanese maple, are chosen for its seasonal characteristics.
It's called a Japanese maple. It's native to Asia. So this tree is actually very traditional in Chinese gardens. It's deciduous. This maple will lose its leaves in the winter.
The wood element is also conveyed through the architectural designs of the garden to reflect traditional Chinese values.
The serpentine curved roof tiles was to ward off spirits or evil. So there are many things in the construction that go into the design and nature of Chinese lifestyle.
Other architectural secrets include the roof tiles and the swooping flying eaves. They convey a feeling of lightness and a sensation of being transported to a celestial realm. In a Ming-style garden, the variety of carefully selected plant life offers a yin-yang contrast with the rocks, waterfalls, and the architectural designs of the garden, creating a harmonious environment for the scholar.
And that's all for today, but don't forget to subscribe to NTD's channel on YouTube, and you can like us at facebook.com/Newtang Dynasty Culture. For now, 再见.